Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah. I live another day into 11th of Rabiul Awal 1442, 28th of October 2020. Thank you, YouTube. Thank you, subscribers and viewers who are kind enough to pay attention to my videos. Right, this video, I will try again to link by virtue of looking at one common activity, which is hill cutting. And in this activity, we will look into the safety, health, and environment core elements. As per combined, perhaps integrated management system of safety, health, and environment. And we'll pick one activity. I'll show you the picture shortly. And before we go on, please, I implore all my fellow Muslim brothers and sisters, if you are in a mosque reciting the Al Quran, or perhaps for the men in mosque on Friday, waiting for the khatib to preach the khutbah, and also if you are in any religious lessons or sessions or events, please do not watch my video. All right, so thank you very much for that cooperation. We'll take a look at this picture. This is a common activity, especially excuse me, alhamdulillah, especially where I am from, Malaysia. We have in the past 2 or 3 decades very keen infrastructure build-up, construction for the economic development mainly, and urbanization, modernization, etc. So this picture is a project. Is in the Klang Valley in Kuala Lumpur, and this picture is, I think, it was taken about more than 15 years ago. Yeah, about 15 years ago. All right, and it is a site of an early phase of land clearing, and this time it involves a high level of the earth structure involving hills and some mountains. And this is a land clearing where this excavator is being deployed to the site as one of the early phases of converting this hill, removing its vegetation and replace it with some mixed development. I think this one is more of service condominiums and some retail shop outlets. And this was what it was as it began 15 years ago, and today is a developed, beautiful, urbanized buildings, service suites, and condominiums. And this was what it was then. It was a hill which was cut. Now take a look at this activity for construction. If you are in the construction sector, you know this very well. I am not an expert in construction, but a few main construction companies and developers attended my training, and I have given what is needed in terms of prevention of environmental pollution and prevention of environmental resource depletion back then. So let's take a look at this picture. Therefore, as you could see, this heavy machinery is being brought to the site. It uses fuel, diesel mainly, and it is a mechanical machinery. Okay, what it does is it excavates or remove all these geological structure which has been around for, I think, many years, and to give way for what has been designed and drawn and approved for the development. Now, in this activity, as you could see, these structures are all rigid. Okay, the one in blue, these are all structures of the hills. It is the hilltop, and these are all rigid structures. But looking at that picture, I believe the rock structure is more like limestone. Okay, and when this excavator goes up into this area and perform this activity, it excavates, it sort of crack through, pull out all these boulders, rock structures, and as it does that, all these soils or all these materials that make up the hills, the rock structures are being broken, and some of the topsoils, well, we still call it topsoil, loosened soil, is loosened off, is being departed from its main structure, and it becomes loose soil. Initially, this place was heavily, it contains vegetation, plants, shrubs, ferns, because the vegetation is suitable for top hills, high elevated area, and it is all already gone. It has been cut off. Okay, so what you see here is the subsequent phases from that land clearing. This is more into, I think, beginning to construct and prepare for the site for construction. The construction people knows the better term than I do. Okay, and here our main concern, one example of an environmental aspect that we are going to discuss, is the loosened soil. Okay, and all these are environmental aspects. The machines, the excavator itself is an environmental aspect. All components, all individual components that make up this, was built into this machine, are environmental aspects. And of course, the hill is an environmental resource. Okay, and it is an environmental aspect, except that it is an environmental media at this point. So when this machines comes in to begin its activity, this activity then carries on, involving all the environmental aspects: the machine, the fuel it uses, and also the natural geological structure. Therefore, as it excavates this particular hill area, which I right now color in blue or green, is now the input aspect for this activity. It is an environmental resource, yes. For this activity, as it is being excavated, that hill structure, that portion of hill structure, is an input environmental aspect, and as the excavator pull out and remove that rocky structures, you get all these boulders, all these aggregates, all this loosened soil, and they are in fact output from that particular activity, an output aspect for this particular activity. So that is our concern. What is it? Loosened soil, loosed soil. Well, my English might not be correct. Okay, and When there is loose soil, let us take a look. Let us associate it with perhaps this safety. What if the soil is loose? The structure has lost its integrity, is no longer intact. The structure is not there. So loose soil is all over the places, apart from all the dusty soil that is being emitted into the atmosphere while the activity is ongoing. So you have loose soil that drops onto the ground and which does not stick to the ground, is not bonded to the ground, it is loose. Now, in terms of safety, uh, I beg your pardon, all safety health officers, managers, experts, industrial hygienists. I'm not the expert there for SH, safety and health. Please comment if I do something wrong, and I hope the rest would listen and do participate in the comment. Now, in Malaysia, it is popular that we have the seasonal monsoon season. As this activity gets underway, heavy rain poses a safety potential hazard. And the fact that the cliff is no longer strong because it has been fragmented. It has, and each fragment has been pulled out of its main structure. And the cliff, the remains, is what we would call a destructured cliff, and that is for us a potential hazard. And when it rains and there's a lot of water pouring over this area, and please remember there is no more vegetation to hold the cliff together, no trees, no plants that root whereby their roots would hold all these different profiles of topsoil together. It is getting weak, and for that reason, one of the potential hazard probably is, I may be wrong in terms of this terminology, health safety experts, please correct me if I'm wrong. There is a potential hazard in the form of surface runoff. Tons of water pouring in, getting into the fractured part of the cliff, getting inside, and as if it is stimulating the breakdown of all this fragment, making the fragment bigger and bigger and making it weak, so that the fragments, the portion of the hills walls would probably collapse. That collapse is probably a potential risk. It could be landslide, or all this cliff collapse can be potential hazard. I'm not sure. You know better than I do. But the potential risk from this condition, as you could see, is if human is working, you have injury. And potential risk could be landslide. I'm not sure whether landslide is potential risk for this activity or landslide is a potential hazard. Please correct me, I'm wrong. All right, if I'm wrong, please correct me and do comment. And when there's worker involved, potentially in worst case scenario, we might have workers trapped in the middle of that, probably in the middle of that activity, and rainstorm comes in from the bright blue sky suddenly. The sky becomes dark and some clouds coming from somewhere and just pour it in instantaneous rain and heavy rain. This is quite common now. It's one of the phenomena in acute climate change that we are observing and witnessing today. And we are, in fact, victim of these global climate changes, as well as probably mud flood. It is a potential risk, and mud flood could be hazard, but please correct me, but mud flood has caused contractors, developers a lot of compensation work to, especially if you look at this area, it is uphill. When there is mud flood, there are residents down below, around the hill, built up residences. And when there is mud flood, you could imagine what happened apart from landslide. And even though we have managed it well, but when the rain is so heavy, all this surface runoff can surpass our retention pond. And mud sort of uh, flow over retention pond and flooded the nearby resident with not just rainwater but mud, and those areas got to be cleaned up, and we got to pay as the main contractor and developer or even project proponent has got to compensate those residents, and some of these residents around this area, they are elite. Okay, so this happened before, and when that happened, what we have is a condition where mud flows into inland water system, monsoon rain right up to the river, and causes excessive sedimentation, and on top of that, it has destroyed properties and has caused some lower area flowing rivers to be heavily sedimented and making it shallow, and that causes those residents or dwellers or people residing nearby those rivers, shallow rivers, to be easily affected by rain flood. So the origin of all these problems are actually upstream projects like this. Okay, so that is how it will link, and you could try to work the reverse. Perhaps rainstorm causes, how does it cause environmental issues? What is safety issues related to environment? How does it impact environment? And from environment, how does it impact health? And try to work it this way. Okay, I believe you have got a good lead now. Okay, and we will take a look now into the environmental management, ISO 14001 version 2015. Okay, since I am an environmental trainer, ex consultant, and ex environmental auditor, let us take a look again. The meaning of environmental management system. What is environmental management system? Okay, environmental management system, in our own words, is about managing what? Managing, anyone? Environmental aspects. How? By fulfilling all compliance obligation. The compliance obligation is not only limited to legal law, local law, international law, but all other obligations, for example, contracts, agreements, etc. Okay, so environmental management system is about managing. How do we manage that environmental aspect? By fulfilling compliance obligation and addressing risk and opportunities. So what we have here is the entire environmental management system made simple for this illustration. Okay, so let's take a look. We take one. only one environmental aspect for a moment. We begin with loosed soil. Loosed soil is after that machine, that excavator, has pulled out the boulders and the rock structure and some other debris that falls with it as loosed soil. So the loosed soil is an output, is an output environmental aspect from this activity. So since it is an output aspect, let's take a look at that particular aspect when it was still a cliff. So what impact to the environment does it cause? Because we want to know the associated or probable environmental impact. What we do is to look at loose soil, what would happen next? That will be looking at the downstream area from the life cycle perspective of the loose soil, meaning what happened to the loose soil after it has been disintegrated from the cliff structure. Potentially, with heavy rain, as we discussed earlier, it can cause an environmental aspect called sedimentation. Sedimentation of what? Monsoon rain, ditches, rivers, and also other land surfaces within the vicinity, within the receiving flow of the mud. So those areas are being heavily sedimented by this loosed soil. That is one of the environmental aspects associated to the loose soil. What's next? If you ask me, that will be the loose soil, okay? But my concern is this. Once the soil has been taken out, the vegetation has been taken out. This is called lost arable land. It is most suitable when we are having an activity called land clearing, but I just purposely put it here because I'm not going to cover land clearing as an activity. You can think about it with your by yourself. Now, when we remove vegetation from any land surfaces in which in its ecological existence it comprises of vegetation, plants, shrubs, and all other vegetations, grasses, etc., you name it. But when we do development, we are pulling out all the vegetations, we cut them off, we pull them off from the ground until the ground is bare, like what you see in the picture. And what we have is a lost arable land as the final product of this activity called land clearing. Okay, and look, land needs to be aerated, land needs water for its cooling, and the water is retained by vegetation. And when we remove vegetation, water would not be able to act as a coolant for the Earth's surface, just like the engine of our car. We need water jacket to cool our liquid cool engine. And without those coolant, our engines get overheated. Think. And when our Earth is deprived of all these vegetations, the subsoil or the lower soil profile, which used to be moistened with water, what happened? Dried off. What happened to the heat? The heat from underground will be dispersed above the land and we feel very warm. Think about global warming. What are the other contributors for global warming? We have deprived the earth of its edible properties. That's one thing. And I'm not going to discuss that in detail. You check it out with ecologists and environmentalists. Now, the other environmental aspect that we would like to discuss is the excavator machine itself. What is it made of? Metal, steel, wires, electronics, all are made from what? Metal is made from what? So since excavator is an input into this process, the environmental aspect associated to the excavator shall be looked from the upstream of the life cycle perspective of the excavator itself. Okay, and that is why I ask, this machine is made from metal from ingots, ingots from ore from mining, mining of natural resources. The more machines like this is in demand, the more new metal supply is needed, more mining will take place, and eventually it will cause a condition popularly known as resource depletion. That is an environmental impact. Got it? Same thing for excavator new parts. These are new parts like oil seals, like the wheels is on chain, like wires, like rubber mounting, etc. All these are from natural resources. The more demand for the parts which comes into this activity as an input aspect, we have got to look at its upstream life cycle perspective to determine what would be the environmental impact. This rubber coming from petrochemical. Some rubber comes from natural rubber that will be very expensive. Most of it are synthetic rubber, petrochemical compounds, yeah, and most of it from oil. And the more demand for oil will be the more demand for natural resources. Okay, and the environmental impact finally is resource depletion. All right, let's take a look at the risk part of this particular activity. Of course, there is legal liability of atmospheric pollution. There is a law for that. Soil contamination. You could have leaks at the sum of this excavator everywhere it goes. You know that better than I do. And there are some risk of public receptors upon, even without mud flood or surface runoff, these residents will be affected by the airborne air pollutions, particulate matters suspended in the air, in the ambient air, and the total particulate matter in the ambient air might increase and might cause some degraded aesthetic quality of the residents around the area. That would cause some outcry from the public, because the public is a bioindicator in ecological terms. Okay, and of course some of the risk is reduced geological integrity of this hilly structure. And my concern is not just this portion where the construction is taking place. I'm concerned of the entire plateau, the plate, the stretch of hills. They are all interacting. They are made from the same pattern of bedrock. And when one is affected, the other would be reacting to it. Okay, and well, we'll discuss that in some other topic. Here I'm just trying to link safety, health, and environment, and giving a picture of what is environmental management system is about. And also we have discussed about lost arable land. Okay, you could see it for yourself. Take a look, go around, and dig further, study into this. I'm just keeping this short and simple, enough for an understanding for even a layman. Okay, so what's the opportunity with regards to environmental management? Do not be confused or do not mix it up with safety and health management systems. Okay, this is for the environment. So if you look at it carefully, a phased hill cut is an environmental decision. Now, most construction has got some phased hill cuts, and they will have, some of them did hydro seeding to ensure that those cut prior or waiting, while waiting for the main construction to take over, to come in, they would plant grasses, which is very good. This is an environmental practice. If you look at my video, I think I have some videos called the mangrove ride, or I ride my bike and take pictures of under soil erosion, sedimentation and erosion. Video on that. Take a look. Some good examples around here in Nusa Jaya, and also look. I would do this. All this loose soil and mud, if not collected during heavy storm or normal rain, you can take a look at your retention pond. You would have enough sludge, sediments. So when we dislodge those sediment retention ponds, don't just put those sludge aside, because if I'm you, I would convert it to bricks, not necessarily for the building, but perhaps for some other infrastructure use. And we can make good bricks from this limestone. Think about it. So these are opportunities, but if you ask some authorities, those sludges from retention pond might be called scheduled waste, because there's some oily stuff as a constituent of those surface runoff. But if you ask me, no, waste doesn't exist, remember. So this is how I put it. This is how I have attempted to link safety, health, and environment for your disposal. I hope if you're a student, academicians of particular concern in construction activities, I hope this video would help you enhance and perhaps trigger a better in-depth thinking and study in the field of applied environmental sciences. So this is about it for this video. Try to keep it short, but not so short though. I thank YouTube. I thank you viewers, and especially subscribers. Do share this video to those who might need to know about it. As you know, I don't reserve any copyright of my work. I am doing this as a payback to the community. I'm doing this to facilitate environmental business sustainability in terms of environment, and especially in terms of environmental resources. So thank you very, very much for your attention and for your time. I wish everybody in Bahasa dikurniakan kesenangan, keselamatan, kesejahteraan, kebahagiaan, dan kejayaan kehidupan di dunia dan di akhirat. I leave and I end this video with the biggest wish for the universe, which is Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Inshallah, we'll meet in the next video.